at some level, you can probably go through all the features and stuff, but I would honestly put all of the repetitive stuff in a video for them to go through. But what you actually want to go through on the call is use case for the person themselves, right? So the first thing that's most important, in my opinion, is running a solid discovery before you actually do the demo. Like, you need to know who the person is, what they're going to be using this for, what their past experiences were that they liked, that they didn't like.
Are you a scaling SaaS founder? Ready to make the leap from leading a team to leading an organization? Join us each week as we refill your think tank with actionable tips and strategies from great business minds you know and those who don't know yet. This is SaaS Fuel with your host, 5-time entrepreneur, SaaS founder, and globetrotting adventurer, Jeff Maines.
Welcome back to the SaaS Fuel podcast, where real sales magic happens somewhere between listening deeply and not sounding like a pop-up ad in a suit. I'm your host, Jeff Maines. I help B2B SaaS founders like you grow from traction to scale. Here, growth is more than just numbers. It's about crafting a future-proof company, premium valuation, and leaders who build a business of significance while living epic, adventurous lives. One of your sales team's biggest competitive advantage isn't the product they're pitching, but the way they make people feel. In this episode, we're rethinking sales from the inside out, starting with a culture behind the calls. Because even the most skilled reps can't thrive in a toxic environment. And even the best product can't shine if the sales conversation feels robotic or rushed or high pressure or just weird. Anybody had one of those conversations? We'll explore how creating a strong, positive sales team culture doesn't just improve morale, it directly impacts performance. You'll hear why psychological safety isn't just for internal teams, but for your prospects too. When buyers feel seen, safe, and understood, they engage more deeply, and their decisions always happen faster. We'll also unpack one of the most underrated tools in the sales toolkit. You got any guesses? Something AI related, probably? No, it's transformational vocabulary. This isn't about just clever scripts. This is about using vivid language, metaphors, and urgency in the right way to help your prospect visualize outcomes and feel confident saying yes. It's pretty cool stuff. And if you're still treating your product demo like a big grand finale, it might be time to rethink the role of the demo entirely. We dig into why demos are more powerful as discovery tools, not closers, and how changing this approach can lead to smarter qualification and better fit clients. From hiring hunters to sharpening soft skills, this episode is packed with practical strategies for founders and sales leaders who want to build teams that close with confidence and connect with purpose. Let's dive in. Our founder on Tuesday was Mac Chirawala, CTO of Wednesday Solutions. He broke down why smaller, focused teams are shipping better products faster. From product pods to vibe sprints, Mac showed how AI native systems, deep documentation, and sprint planning can transform your roadmap and your team. And our expert guest last week was Will Spengler, who built Frederick Fox into a 700-plus client national recruiting firm by tossing out the traditional playbook. He revealed why bloated infrastructure kills momentum and what lean, modern hiring really looks like at scale. If you missed either episode, go check them out. My guest today is Christian Jack, former teacher turned $100 million revenue sales powerhouse and the founder of the Sales Dojo. When he's earning just $1,200 a month, Christian made an all-in bet. Over time, getting into sales and investing over $500,000 of his own money, his own commissions, to continue learning, growing from the biggest names in sales. What he found was broken systems, overpriced fluff, and a total disconnect from the real psychology behind selling. That's why he built the Sales Dojo. This is an online sales training program that blends belief systems, behavioral science, and tactical training using a martial arts-inspired belt model. Today, he's helping thousands of professionals rewrite their mindset around money, influence, and sustainable growth. Welcome someone who's bringing discipline, clarity, and real transformation to sales, Christian Jack. Hey, Christian, welcome to SaaS Fuel.
Thanks so much, Jeff. Really appreciate it. Excited to be here.
Well, I love your background, education, and then into sales. What is it that flipped the switch for you, and how did that transition happen?
Flipped the switch, I would say, is just learning to work on my lowest hanging fruit. I didn't realize that that was the way to really improve very quickly. I thought it was kind of the other way around. I thought, maybe I should work on the things that I'm good at so that I can become better at them, right? Work on what works, do it more and
Sure.
do it better. Makes sense. But also at the same time, in sales, especially if you're losing deals, maybe you should look at why you're losing them.
That's a pretty good one. Why is it that salespeople do lose deals and don't really understand why? What's the missing piece there, and really understanding what's going on in the sales process for why they can't get to where they want to get to?
I think it's the same reason that we miss why we're losing other things in life as well.
Okay.
Oftentimes we just kind of look at the symptom of the problem. So, in sales, it might look like an objection. As an example, you get an objection at the end of the call. And so then you look at, okay, well, how do I handle that objection? And that's great. That's step one, right? You're starting to become more aware of, at least why you're losing deals. That's helpful. But then usually there's another layer below that, right? I mean, you know this when you
Sure.
get just say like it's too expensive objection or something, right? It's probably not actually too expensive. It's
Sure.
probably just their perspective on what is expensive versus what isn't, or how expensive their problem is and what it would
Right.
cost to solve it, or what the upside would be if they did solve it, et cetera. So the next layer beyond that is not just handling the objection, but like, what is it that actually caused the objection? What was it that you said? What was it that maybe you didn't say that you should have? And so then I think that's the same reason that we lose out on a lot of things in life, because we look at the problem and we're like, there's a problem. Let me figure out how to
Yeah.
solve it real quick, instead of looking at it and exploring potentially what caused it. That's the biggest one I've seen personally, at least.
Yeah. I like that. So how do you go from teaching to sales and then teaching sales? What does that path look like? What drove the
Oh
change?
man. Well, I started teaching really just because I was newly married, and it was pretty much the only job that I could think of getting. Like my parents were both musicians, and it's just kind of like what I grew up with. And so it was all I knew. I didn't know anything about the corporate world. I didn't know anything about Fortune 500 companies. I didn't understand anything about business. And so I just did what I knew I could do in order to earn money as a newly married guy, right? I wanted that security for the family. But
Yeah.
very quickly, I realized that I didn't have any of the freedoms that I wanted. I was stuck at the school all day. I had to go to the school. I couldn't like go work at a coffee shop. If we wanted to take a vacation or something, there was only so many vacation days that I could take. And financially, there was no way to ever earn any more money as a teacher, right? And so all those things combined kind of put me in this place where I'm personally a very entrepreneurial person. I'm a self-starter. Like I like to go and do things with my life, and I like to go and set goals and achieve them, etc. And so I just felt like I didn't have that. So I tried to find something that I could do, a skill that I could learn that was COVID proof, right? At the time, COVID was kind of still around a bit. That was like World War III proof, right? You never know what's going to happen in the world. So I was thinking of that. But then also I wanted that kind of uncapped potential, uncapped upside, while also having all the freedoms that I wanted. I wanted to be able to go and work from a coffee shop. I wanted to go and work from Colombia for a week or whatever, right? And so every single person that I saw that was super duper successful ran a business. And so I tried running a business at first, but it sucked because I had never run a business before. Shocking. But in learning about business, I saw a recurring theme. And the recurring theme was that every single successful business owner always said the same exact thing. It was learn sales, get really good at sales. And so I was like, all right, maybe I should take these people's advice if I want to be successful like them
Yeah.
one day. And so I did. I got into sales and started doing really well at sales. It took me a while. I invested a lot of money. I think up until this point, It's somewhere around 800 grand over the past 3-ish years into just sales training, learning from psychologists, hypnotic therapists, like behavior science, interrogation. Like I've learned a bunch of different stuff. And so at first I sucked at sales, but slowly over time I started to get this new concept and get this new concept and get this new concept and start integrating it into my calls, et cetera, et cetera. And I got to the point now where I've done a little over 100 million in sales over the past 3 years. And so then once I started getting close to that number, and I was like, well, maybe I have a thing or two that I can help some other people with, because I was managing teams. I was a CRO for a couple of companies. And so I was naturally already helping sales reps just do a little bit better. So I was like, why not just start doing it officially? And then it just kind of started snowballing after that. More and more people wanted to sign up. More and more people wanted to join. More and more people wanted to learn from me. So now here we are. This is a big part of what we do now.
Oh, that's awesome. What types of industries were you selling in? Like what types of products or services?
Oh man, a bunch of stuff. So without going too in depth, I'd say high ticket is my bread and butter. Aside from that, now primarily what I sell is corporate insurance and it's like tax incentive programs for companies.
Okay.
Like productized, taking advantage of tax incentives. I did a bit of software. I did a bit of tech, not a ton. I've had a few students who are in real estate that I'm closely working with, but that's about it. If you think high ticket, so like coaching, consulting, that's the main one. And then the other ones that I mentioned as well.
Okay. How do you think sales has changed over the past, even 2 or 3 years, but certainly the last 5 years?
As always, the market becomes more aware, and more often than not, that's what I found to drive changes in the market. Just as consumers, as customers become and prospects become more aware of their problems, their desires, their goals, the marketplace, because they've tried different solutions before and maybe they haven't worked out. They've worked with a company before and maybe it didn't go as well as they'd like. They become more aware of what's out there, what exists, and everything involved with it. And so then because of that, more often than not, when people become more aware, it's unfortunately a bit negative, right? And you see it everywhere in life. Like if you think back to, when I was a kid and, I was learning to ride a bike. As you learn to ride a bike, you become more aware of what it takes to ride a bike. But with that awareness comes the falls, right? The skinned knees, you fall off and you hurt your elbow or something, right? That's part of the learning process. That's part of growing. But more often than not, like just the way that our brains work is we crave safety, we crave security. And so when we get hurt with something, we have a tendency to look on that badly and maybe not even try again, right? I fell off the bike once. Is it even worth riding the bike at this point, right? But eventually you get to the point where you still want to continue. And so then they get on another sales call or they get on with another business looking at their software and they're like, man, this last software was all right, but it had all these problems and we spent a lot of money on it. So like, I really just want to make sure that the same thing that happened then doesn't happen again. And so then sales has now become even more of a game of building trust, I think, and building connection with people rather than just, we have the best features, we have the best, we have all the best benefits to our software. It integrates with everything. Like that's all important, of course. But even more so is people just want to work with people that they trust and that they know, because the world is a big place. And I feel like it just gets bigger and bigger every day. So I think that's the biggest one. It's just trust. Just trust. And in the future, I think it'll continue to trend that way, especially with AI and with the whole revolution that's happening there. So people will never know what's real and what's not until they get on the phone with somebody and like they just get that sense that this person's honest, right? This person is real with me. They're not just putting on a facade.
Yeah. I think a lot of founders think, sales is about scripts, frameworks, that kind of thing. Where does
Mhm.
psychology, you mentioned that earlier, where does that
Mm.
fit into real influence and making that connection with people?
Mm. When it comes to connection, I'd say it's a really big deal. It's everything, just about. Scripts, frameworks, etc., are a way to standardize or almost productize the sales process, which is good from a company perspective because you can have more consistency with the sales team. If everybody's saying one script, then it's easy to figure out, okay, we're losing a bunch of people. We're getting this exact objection. Let's just change the script across the board. Everybody follows it. It's great. But when it comes to connecting with other human beings, scripts are kind of the opposite of what works. If you think about when's the last time that you had a genuine connection with Chat GPT? Like
Yeah.
like
Like
sure,
never.
I use it more than a lot of people. I will go on a walk and put Chat GPT in my ear and talk through business problems and talk through things that I'm seeing, and it'll help me kind of figure some things out. But it's never a real connection, right? It's a tool, not a connection. Those are two very different things. With a connection, there's a little bit more give and take, and because of that, I think psychology and neuroscience and everything that I'd talk about inside the dojo really plays a really important role in all of it. So, an example of this, right? Um, Safety and security, just going back to that. Everybody wants to feel it, everybody likes
Sure.
it. And so, if you come onto a call with somebody, maybe it's a Zoom meeting, maybe it's a closing call, whatever, and the person doesn't feel safe or secure, they feel like they're on their back foot, they feel like you're combative, whatever it might be, then they're going to be a lot less open to share information with you because, just naturally the way that the human brain works, the way psychology works, is that if you don't feel safe, what do? You close off. When you, let's say you're walking down the street or something, and you walk up to an alley and you don't know what's down the alley. Maybe you're in a dark part of the neighborhood or something, right? Immediately,
Yep.
you get wary. Your spidey sense is going off. You're looking around the corner a little early to make sure that you're safe. You're keeping an eye out on things, and that's not a great state to be in. Just as a human being, that's not where great decisions are made. So, psychology is huge. I think a lot of people just completely underestimate it.
Yeah. How do we create that psychological safety for buyers in a world where sales is not trusted?
Yeah, it's a good one. I'd say biggest things, number one, is just be a normal human being. More often than not, the biggest thing that creates safety, think about areas in life where people feel the most safe, right? Maybe it's in their living room with their family, right?
Sure.
What do people do in their living room with their family? Maybe they watch TV, maybe they play a board game, maybe they just sit and talk. Another example might be maybe just going to the bar, hanging out with some friends, right? Feel super duper safe there. But what causes you to feel safe there? It's a group of people all together. You feel like you fit in. You're not like the odd one out of the group, because you can also go to a bar where maybe you're the new person in the group and you feel completely alienated and you don't know how to connect with other people and your social skills are low. Another way to make people feel safe is just generally making them feel good about themselves, having self-confidence. A lot of people lack self-confidence these days. And so if you can help them achieve a higher level of self-confidence, then that can help somebody feel safe as well. Just complimenting them maybe on something that they're doing or a behavior or something unique about them. Right? You notice they're wearing a watch. Like, dude, that's an amazing watch. Where'd you get it? It's like, I've never seen one like that before. And they'll just light up. They're like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad that you asked. I got it at JCPenney just yesterday. So it's simple. But I think there's a lot of tactics, but in general, it's just making people feel good about themselves. And if you can trigger some sort of script in their brain from a time where they feel safe, like when they're in their living room with their family or when they're sitting at a bar with their friends or something, that's a great one, which, you know, I won't go too deep into it because I know I'm starting to ramble here, but I think it's really fun. It's a really cool tactical thing. So scripts are
Yeah.
something that run in people's brains for different scenarios in their life, right? When you get in the car and maybe you're driving home from somewhere that you've driven a million times, maybe you're driving home from work late at night, right? And you
Yep.
drive home, and I don't know if you've ever experienced this, Jeff, but like you get home and you don't remember the drive.
Right.
You're like,
Right.
wait,
Happens a lot.
what just happened, right? It happens all the time. And so that's the script running in your brain because you've driven it a million times. Your brain doesn't really have to put that much thought or effort into driving home because you've done it a bunch. It runs that script. But you can do the same exact thing when you're on a sales call. Maybe the script that runs in the brain, let's just say, maybe you come into the office as a prospect, right? Put yourself in the shoes of the prospect. You come into the office in the morning and you have this guy that you usually talk to. His name's Joe. And Joe always asks you if you saw the game last night, right? Like
Sure.
super duper simple. When you as a salesperson then ask if the prospect saw the game last night, it triggers that same script in their brain as when they first walk into the office. So now they are in office mode. If instead, maybe you trigger a script of when they come home from the office each day to their family, maybe their spouse asks them, hey, honey, how was your day? Right? Or maybe their kid sees them come home and they're like, Daddy, they just like super excited,
Yeah.
full of energy. So you can emulate certain things about that as a salesperson in order to trigger that script. So it's really, really interesting, but you can help somebody open up. And I use the word help very specifically because it can be borderline manipulation. Like if you understand psychology at a really high level, you have a lot more power than most people in the world. So it's really important to make sure that you use it in the right way. But just triggering scripts, I think, is the biggest one. So you can trigger a script for safety if you want them to feel safety.
Yeah, I like that. And it's helpful to have that where you know it so well that you can deliver the pitch or whatever it is,
Yeah.
and you can focus on other parts of the interaction, how they're
Yes.
reacting, what their response is, facial expressions, those kinds of things, because
Yeah.
you're not having to figure out what are the right words to say here, trying
Exactly.
to explain it, but you're able to really, I think, engage at a deeper level.
Absolutely.
What would you say to reps that would say, I don't want to use a script, and I don't want to feel scripted or be tied in or that kind of thing, and just kind of want to roll their own?
It's a concept that I call the learning pendulum, and it was something that I actually learned before I ever got in sales. It's if you think of it like a pendulum, like a clock, right? It's got the pendulum under that swings back and forth. And basically what happens as you're going through the learning process for anything, not just sales, right? If we talk about, let's say I'm learning tennis right now, right? We just moved into a new house and we have a tennis court, and I've never played tennis. I play pickleball a good bit, but never played tennis.
Nice.
And so we have a coach coming over and he's teaching me about how to play tennis, and he has to remind me that like, so stand this way, put your foot here, put your foot here. All right. Make sure that your wrist is locked as you're coming through the swing. Make sure that you're hitting and you're fully wound up before this. So like he's teaching me all these things that I have to line up to do exactly right in order to be successful. It's the same thing in sales. When you first start in sales, you have to learn all the little things. But then that's one side of the pendulum. Once you get to the zenith, if you will, the apex of that swing, then it's going to start swinging to the other side, which is forgetting all of that and just being there, just being present, right? If you're a professional, tennis athlete, I don't even know what that would be, just tennis athlete, tennis player.
A tennis player, yeah.
Like you're not thinking about where to put your feet. You're just there reacting to whatever is happening, planning for the next, right? It's the same thing in sales. And so you'll probably go through a couple of swings and, even at the zenith of this side of the pendulum, even at that full authenticity, full presence, you will eventually then go back to the other side. And you'll think, maybe there's some things that I have left to learn. And so then you go back to this side and then you get to the top and you go back again and you go back. And it's just a process. It's like seasons, if you will. Like the spring is always going to come around. And as soon as you get tired of spring, then it's time for summer. And as soon as you're tired of how hot it is in the summer, I'm in Houston, it gets so hot. As soon as you're tired of how hot it is in the summer, then it's time for the fall. And then you wish it to be, warm again when it's in the winter, and it gets warm again. So it's the same thing. Just anytime in life, just accept the idea that at first you'll have to learn the tactics because it's new. And then you'll learn to be authentic, and it will probably happen pretty naturally. But then you'll realize that you want more tactics again. And so it's just a constant swinging back and forth. And as long as you understand that and you're okay with it and you accept it, then you'll go through just fine.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about demos. I think that demos are a really hot topic for the audience, for one.
100%.
And it's one of those things. I've been through so many demos that are just absolutely terrible. Give me your take on SaaS demos. What works in them, what doesn't, and maybe what are founders getting wrong in the demo process.
I'd say the biggest thing to remember is that the demo can kind of just become something that's so rehearsed that it is no longer customized, right? If you do enough demos, you start to get into a rhythm of like, show the person this thing, show the person this thing, show the person this thing. And, at some level, you can probably go through all the features and stuff, but I would honestly put all of the repetitive stuff in a video for them to go through. But what you actually want to go through on the call is use case for the person themselves, right? So the first thing that's most important, in my opinion, is running a solid discovery before you actually do the demo. Like, you need to know who the person is, what they're going to be using this for, what their past experiences were that they liked, that they didn't like, because then all of the framing becomes really easy when you're on a demo. Maybe you have a certain part of your platform, as an example, that's like as a customer portal. And inside of the customer portal, the most important thing when designing the UI and the UX is that it is simple to use, right? If the prospect that you're on the phone with, or you're on the meeting with, had a bad past experience with a software, that maybe the customer portal UI was overly complicated, and so then they didn't get customers who were very well engaged previously, then you're going to want to highlight that feature because it's different than what they tried before. Or maybe even if yours is a bit complicated and their last one was a bit complicated, you can frame some things and you can show them how simple it actually is. So I think it's really important. Like, the solution doesn't matter. Ultimately, people don't care about the quote unquote solution. They care about solving the problem that they have, right?
Sure.
And so you need to find the problem that they have and then tie your solution into that. So that's number one. Just absolutely run a good discovery. Number two is a really unique concept that I haven't really heard talked about in very many places. And people who are watching this might cringe for a moment as I mention his name. But there's this guy who I used to cringe at a ton until I started getting really good at sales and I saw what he was doing. His name's Tony Robbins. And he has this concept called transformational vocabulary.
Yep.
And
very, very good.
It's if anybody listening to this doesn't know it, just go and look it up. But it's the idea that we don't live our life experience through our experience. We live it through the words that we attribute to the experience.
Yep.
And so if you are talking to somebody about your product, about your service, about your software, etc., the words that you use to describe it are very, very important. If you are unable to articulate and describe what you do as exciting, as innovative, as front-facing, as, front end of the curve, as exactly what everybody wants and needs, and not as this boring thing that they see on their computer screen, as cool as it probably is, they probably see it as pretty boring. Then, you're going to lose. So if you communicate using words that are boring, then the prospect is going to view it as boring. And they're probably not going to view it as very exciting. They're not going to view it as very premium. They're not going to view it as worth the investment because it's just another boring old software they've been on 10, 15 meetings for already. So discovery number one, using a higher level of vocabulary is number two. And then number three that I would say is understanding just the syntax of things. So the way that I usually think of this is through a couple of pillars. So the first layer of explaining something is the problem and the solution. So what is the problem that they have? What is the solution that they want? So when I'm talking about a certain feature or something, I'm walking them through the software. I'm going to talk about that first. The second thing that I talk through is the actual vehicle. So whatever it is that their goal is, maybe their goal is to get more engagement, more people to actually use the software as opposed to, just a couple of their clients using it. That's going to be the next thing is like, with this specific thing that we're talking about inside, how do we actually set up the software in a way where people will actually use it? And what is the specific vehicle that we've used in order to achieve that, right? So maybe it's something specific inside of the customer portal. Maybe it's something specific in the layout of it. Maybe it's something specific in the backend automations to remind people to use it, whatever it might be. And then the next thing after that is the company itself. And so what we're doing as a company in order to foster that for our clients and for their clients as well. If you follow those three things, you're pretty well set up with any sort of demo or a presentation in order to make sure that it hits really, really well. And it's not just solving the problem, but they see that it's not just about solving the problem and like the software, but we as a company are here focused on that thing for our clients as well.
What if a leadership book and a Netflix drama had a baby? That is The Captain's Keys, Storms, Emotional Wreckage, and a surprisingly practical leadership system that one CEO called the owner's manual and never got for 20 years of leadership. Here is the brutal truth. You're probably drowning in LinkedIn connections while starving for real relationships. I hear it all the time. Most leaders are exhausted from playing the lone hero, and it's killing both your results and your sanity. The Captain's Keys reveals a new leadership framework, the stability matrix, 4 specific relationships that prevent burnout while multiplying your impact. And this isn't just theory. It's a system that I've used to scale companies and taught over 1,000 executive leaders. So grab your copy today at thecaptainskeys.com, Amazon, or choose your own adventure, print, ebook, or audio. Stop drowning alone and build your stability matrix. What's your take on using demos as a qualification and using kind of the demo for discovery instead of further down the funnel where you're a lot closer to closing the deal?
Yeah, I see a lot of people provide demos as a bit more of a qualification tool. Personally, I don't love it. I think that there's a certain give or take that needs to happen at the beginning of an interaction. And that's why a lot of people use demos there. They'll get a prospect in, and the prospect is immediately, there's 60 billion messages that come through the internet every day. Like that's an insane number of messages. If you didn't know, it would take you 3,600 years for you to count from 1 to 1 billion, 1 billion, let alone 60 billion, right?
Wow.
And so that just like puts it into perspective how much 60 billion actually is. And so people come onto your call and like, dude, just give me what's the stick, right? What's the deal? What are the upsides? What are the downsides? What do I need to know? And so a lot of people will resort to giving a demo as, that sort of give in the relationship, if you will, in order to see if they're interested. But more often than not, that's, you can give a basic demo. I think that can be helpful if you just give an overview. But just remember that anytime that you talk, you run the risk of losing that prospect. Anytime that you are giving information or running through the product or anything like that, there could just be one little thing could just turn this person off completely. And you will have no idea what it is. They will just not be interested, right? And so you have to be very tactful with this. I think that if you run a demo on the front end, it needs to be the most generic demo you've ever seen in the world. And then after that, allow them to book another meeting or whatever the process is going to be. But when you run the real demo, that's like, okay, based off of discovery that we've had, that has to happen after discovery. It can't be at the beginning because you don't know what they want. So how in the world are you going to sell somebody something that you don't even know if they want? That's marketing. That's not sales.
Yeah. Yeah, there is a difference. How do you find that the dividing line between those two, marketing, sales, and then where are they separate, and then how do they work together best?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think a lot of people get it wrong. Marketing, in my opinion, is meant to, how do I say this? Marketing gets people to the point where they start to lean in. As soon as they start leaning in, that's sales job. So let's just say maybe you have software that helps people set up their affiliate portal within their company, right? White label partners, etc. Lots of people have the problem of not having an affiliate portal, of doing it manually, of it not tracking things properly, et cetera, et cetera. And those are problems that marketing will probably put out in an ad. Are you struggling with blah, 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 blah? Or are you a founder who doesn't have blah, 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 blah? Are you not taking advantage of this? And so marketing will kind of point those things out. And somebody will raise their hand and say, yes, that is me. And so then now they're leaned in a bit, right? So marketing goes, hey, do you want to talk to one of our salespeople? Yes, great, done. Not complicated, super duper simple. But the problem comes when marketing just kind of like runs an ad and they're like, we have this platform that helps people do X and Y and Z, but then doesn't really do anything beyond that. And so then people show up on the sales call and maybe they half watch the marketing video, like they didn't really pay attention, right? You've probably had prospects before that didn't watch any of the materials beforehand. They're like, I don't even remember what this is. I just like booked in, so it must be important. That's where I feel like marketing should probably pick up a little bit of that burden rather than sales, because marketing is meant to be one to many. And I think that's the big difference between marketing and sales, is that marketing is super duper leveraged, right? In my opinion, probably the most important part of the business in terms of growing. Marketing is very leveraged because it is one to as many people as you want to reach. It's beautiful. Sales, I'm on a one-on-one conversation here. Like there's only so much time that I have in a day. There's only so many people that I can speak to in a day. And so you want to kind of balance opportunity with conversion, right? So if you have a ton of opportunity coming through, maybe you have an AI software, and as soon as people hear AI, they're like, I want to book in. They don't even know what it does. They just hear AI. They'll book in. And so then you have a lot of opportunity. Then you have to be very specific with the people that you speak with because you have so much opportunity. You get to disqualify a little bit more. But when you have a very low amount of opportunity, maybe marketing isn't doing as well, and you only have 2 or 3 appointments for the day, then you got to be a bit more inclusive as a salesperson. And you got to be more careful with the leads that you have because you only have so many of them. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, certainly working with the leads that you have and treating them like they are a finite resource, because they really are. Yeah. And not just we're going to send out another 10,000 emails tomorrow and get some more in, but actually, really treat them like they matter. Yeah. I think one lead could turn into there's I always call them super referrers. Every once in a while you'll come across somebody that'll refer you your next 50 clients. And you never know when that person's going to be the next one on your calendar. Yeah. Yeah. If you assume that every one of them is like that, then they all have a great experience. 100%. Yeah. Well, walk us through maybe a before and after example, a company transforming its demo process and, results. What were they doing before? What were they doing after? And how did they think about it and then implement the changes? And then what happened? So I'd say the most common situation is we'll come into a company and, you know, they're running their demos on the front end, like super duper common. And instead, all that we do is we just tell them to send out a video before the like appointment setting call. So, maybe they'll watch a marketing video, they'll opt in, and then a setter is going to send them a video and then call them in order to check on like what they thought of the video. And then that's where they'll hand it off to a closer instead of running the demo on the front end. Like a lot of people will say, video ad, book in a call where we can demo the product with you. And then, an AE will actually hop on the call and demo the product with them. And then they'll just say that they're not interested. And so I think the front end of that sales process is really the biggest one where we'll change it up a good bit and put in a proper like appointment setting scripts and process in place, because then we can really qualify the leads and make sure that the right people get over to the closer, so that you need less team members, right? It's a lot less of a headache to manage as a manager, as a founder. You don't need a team of 5, 10 people. You can just have a team of 3 or 4 and get some really good numbers there with that. But then it's also just a lot less of a headache on the tech side of things. And you're not just burning through leads. You're treating each one as a lot more precious. And you're figuring out whether people are actually interested a lot earlier in the process, so that you're not just over leveraging your closers. So one company, I think they were doing like 80 signups a month, which is not bad. Getting through 2 or 3 a day, basically. And as soon as we switched up that process, they went from 2 or 3 a day to 5 or 6 a day. And it sounds kind of bad, but it happens. It's business. They were able to get rid of like half their sales team that they were running. When they were doing 2 or 3 a day, I think they had 8 sales reps on the team.
Wow, that's way too many.
Yeah. And then past that, they went down to 2. They just had 1 setter, 1 closer. And so obviously both those people were now super duper happy. They were super duper fulfilled. They were excited because they were making money that they wanted to make. But then they were also just busy all day, instead of like sitting around waiting for things to happen, running another demo and hoping, like crossing fingers that it's going to come through. And so, I mean, now they're doing a lot better numbers, but that was really how it all started. And a lot of people just run that demo on the front end, and it just always makes me smile, because it gives me something to do day to day.
I think a lot of, especially this last year, but it's been before that too, but especially this last year, it hasn't been SaaS companies losing deals to I'm not interested, or even competitors. But the biggest competitor that I think we all have in the marketplace is no action, no decision. So we go through the demo, and then that's kind of the end of it. And nothing happens. I think buyers are more skeptical, they're more cautious. How do you cut through that resistance and get to that yes instead of the well, I don't know if we're really going to do anything?
I'll give 2 things on this. One is a little bit more tactical than the other. So I'll start with the not as tactical one. The not as tactical one is that concept of transformational vocabulary you can use for this. You can use metaphors, you can use analogies, you can use words that induce more of an action-taking mindset. If instead of, let's just say, maybe you're talking through the discovery, and you're talking with the prospect about the ramifications if they don't kind of solve this over the course of the next year, 2 years, what sort of opportunity are they losing out on, et cetera. You want to use words like the door is closing, or, the window is open, because that will start to help people envision in their mind, like they can see a door closing. They can visualize that. It's not just, this is a better way to do things. You can't visualize a better way. It just doesn't compute in the brain. But if you use these sorts of metaphors, and specifically ones that are related to urgency, then you don't really have to like push at the end, because they're already in an urgent state of mind, right? Remember, the words that we use dictate how we feel and the emotions that we feel, right? And so if we just use words that induce more urgency, it's not like we have to sell the person on going faster. They're just in a state where they want to go faster naturally. You may not even have to ask any questions about how soon they want to do it. And they're like, I want to do it yesterday. Let's go. So that's number one. One's a little bit harder to grasp, but once you do, it's super, super powerful. The second thing, and more tactical one, is I do a really fancy syntax at the beginning of my calls now for anything that I sell. And I'm not going to go through everything, but the idea of it is what's called a regression story. And it's the idea that when I talk about when I was a kid, there's this thing that happens. And I always use it in the same way. But basically, when we first moved to Texas, when I was a kid, we moved to Houston. And I got to meet a real life astronaut. And it was part of a school field trip. We walked in this room. It was a big white room. All the kids, I was 13 at the time. We were all, stepping. You can hear the steps just like reverberating off all the walls because big white empty room. It's like total sci-fi movie looking thing. And then this tall astronaut was down at the end in his blue outfit. And so I was at the front of the line. We were walking up to this astronaut. And as soon as we walked up, the astronaut looked down at me because I was in the front. And I was just looking up at him, and he put his hand on my shoulder. And he said, you can do whatever you want with your life if you believe you can, and you can make it happen as soon as you want it to. And that was just something that stuck with me for my entire life. And I tell that story at the beginning of my calls. And like I said, it's the psychological factor on this goes so deep, I could probably talk about it for 5 or 6 hours. But essentially what happened is we're taking this authority figure and he's telling us something in this story that the prospect is putting themselves in the first person of, because that's just how stories work, right? You watch a movie,
Sure.
You put yourself in first person. And so they're putting themselves in my shoes, looking up at the astronaut, and this authority figure is telling them that they can do whatever they want and they can achieve whatever they want as soon as they want to achieve it. And so that sets an anchor for the rest of the call where we're talking about what it is that they want. We're talking about what it is that they don't want. And the anchor is now set that they can achieve it whenever they want to, as soon as they want to. And I think the biggest reason that people put things off in their life, in their business, is because it seems difficult. They're worried about maybe what if it doesn't work out? They're worried about maybe it's not even that important. But if you knew that something was simple and it was easy and you could make it happen tomorrow and it would benefit you in any way, why wouldn't you do it? Like if you're just walking around in the parking lot and you find $100 bill on the ground, like it's not that complicated of a decision. The thing that complicates it might be a bit of fear, a bit of uncertainty. Like, who knows, maybe somebody laced it with some drugs or something, pull me in their car. But aside from that, right, if you're not worried about that, it's a very simple decision to just take advantage of an opportunity. But when things become complicated, when things become difficult, when things become, arduous, this takes a long time, that's when people like to delay. So I think if you can just anchor early on, if you can use that transformational vocabulary idea and make things just feel simple as a decision, people make decisions very quickly when they're simple. You don't have to think about getting a glass of water.
Yeah. And those are really low stakes decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of buyers are really looking at making a purchase, especially if it's software, if it's strategic, as this is something that really matters. Because if they get it wrong, it could be, they could be looking for a job.
100%. But again, it always goes back to that fear versus safety and security. Like you're in the seat because, somebody hired you, somebody trusted you enough to make the decision.
Yep, it's true.
You won't get fired if you make the decision that you know that you should make. Yeah. You'll get fired if you don't make the decision that you know that you should make.
Well, if you could wave a magic wand and change how SaaS founders approach building sales teams and building those that you talked about, the one definitely overstaffed,
Mhm.
but in making the right choices and then training them and executing, wave the magic wand, what would that one change be? What would it look like?
I think culture. Culture is the biggest one with sales teams. I've seen so many businesses just go under just because their sales team culture died. Like the sales team is oftentimes one of the bigger teams in the business, right? More people that it relies on. And it has a very direct tie to the revenue of the business, which is the lifeblood of the business, right?
Sure.
And so it's also reliant on humans. And so all those things combined make it a very what's the word? It's a very delicate thing. And so I think the most important idea that a lot of founders miss is that the culture of the sales team is what will likely drive the business the most, combined with having a good marketing team who's like locked in with the sales team. And then of course, good for like everything fits together, right? But for the sales team, the culture dictates everything. I've seen sales teams whose culture is complete, but they have the highest skills salespeople that I've seen in a long time, and they're just not making any money because the culture is crap. Nobody wants to show up. Nobody wants to do work. Everybody is kind of waiting for things to be handed to them, even though they're fantastic salespeople, just not making any money. And then I've also seen teams with terrible salespeople with fantastic culture, and they're not as profitable as they'd like to be, but they're definitely making a lot of money. And it's just because people are excited and having fun day to day, and they're moving towards goals and they're incentivized. And like, it's all the things that I'm sure all of these founders who are listening to this know. Like, I'm sure you know this, but are you actually doing it? Like, do you actually show up day to day in a way that your sales team is excited, right? Are you working towards an actual goal, not just a quote revenue goal, but like something that's important to the sales team, to the salespeople as humans? That's the biggest one that I'd say. People just completely miss out on it because it seems obvious and most people know how to build a good culture. The problem is that it's just sometimes a bit difficult. And it's just a grind every single day. It's something that you just got to show up and do it. It is never something that you can just slack off on and it'll still be there. It'll go away in an instant if you're not careful.
Sure. Well, where can people learn more about you and the Sales Dojo online?
You can Google me. Everything is online for you. You just look up Christian Jack. You look up the Sales Dojo. You'll be able to find it. As well, I'm looking up here. I know that I have I know that we'll have a link down in the description specifically for people here, for SaaS founders, so that you'll have a couple of things that you can dive into for some free stuff, some little goodies. And then, of course, if you want to reach out and you want to do some bigger stuff, that will, of course, be there as well. But you just look me up anywhere, you'll find me.
Excellent. We'll make sure and put links in the show notes. And Christian, it's been a great conversation. Thanks for being on SaaS Fuel.
Thanks so much. It's a pleasure. See you next time. Thanks again, Christian, for coming on the show and sharing your journey and insights. You can learn more about Christian and the Sales Dojo. He has a school group, School, SKOOL, and you can find that at school.com/thesalesdojo. We'll link it in the show notes, just like we do everything else. Highlights, resources, everything is there in the show notes at saasfuel.com. And of course, check us out on YouTube as well. It's at Champion Leadership. Thought leaders share. Share this episode with someone who builds tech stacks the way chefs build 12-layer cakes. Everyone who shares this week gets a golden spatula of scalability. Flip your MVP into a unicorn with one confident flick. Results may vary, but your swagger definitely won't. Can fixing your back office unlock a whole new business model? Well, next week, Harish Chandramoli reveals how a casual Soho shop visit led him to build Flair,
a powerful AI-fueled SaaS platform that is transforming operations for independent fashion brands. Went from cybersecurity at MongoDB to startup founder, and this one is all about curiosity meeting execution. So good. Then after that, can HR be a growth engine, not just a cost center? Well, our next guest will tell us all about that. And that is 1 week from today, next Thursday, we have Nahed Kairala. He'll show us how he's helped scale startups from 7 to 9 figure valuations by treating HR like rocket fuel. With global wins across 25 countries, this episode is packed with strategy for founders ready to grow fast without breaking themselves or the bank. I will see you next time, and as always, enjoy the journey.
Thanks for listening to SaaS Fuel. Full show notes for each episode, which includes a summary, key takeaways, quotes, and any resources mentioned, are available at saasfuel.com. Be sure to follow and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're enjoying the content and getting value from these episodes, please leave us a rating and review at ratethispodcast.com/SaaSfuel. We'll be sure to read these out on future episodes.